These are 10 things to do when you get a new gaming PC. Whether you are building your own or have purchased a pre-built, this will help you get the most out of your computer, getting better performance in all of your games and apps. One of the most important aspects of your gaming PC are the RAM sticks. This is often overlooked and is essential to maximizing the performance from your CPU. Crucial's brand new DDR5 Pro OC gaming memory is perfect for both Intel and AMD. With support for Intel XMP 3.0 and AMD Expo, you can overclock your RAM sticks for maximum FPS, whilst also taking advantage of up to 25% lower latency speeds, helping you be the most competitive in the game. The sleek, minimalistic design of the aluminium heat shields is available in both black and white, so your build can have the cleanest aesthetic. You can check out the link down below for more info, and a special thank you to Crucial for sponsoring this segment of the video. First, let's talk about probably one of the most forgotten settings on a PC, which is unlocking the FPS on your monitor. Most gamers have a high refresh rate panel, 120Hz, 144Hz, 240Hz, and so on, and that's the main reason why you buy a gaming PC, is obviously to play at these crazy FPSs, to get smoother gameplay, more competitive gameplay, so you can be more responsive and like bang, 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 and win all of your games. But something that's absolutely hilarious is the amount of people that completely forget to enable high refresh rate on their PC, because as soon as you boot up the computer for the very first time, most of the time, the display settings are locked at 60 Hertz, so you could have a crazy 300-400 Hertz beyond panel, but only be literally playing at 60 Hertz, or even worse, 30 Hertz. So you're playing at 30 FPS, but in your head, you think you're playing way, way higher. There's so many people that forget to change this. I don't know if this is all of the excitement of getting a new PC, or the task of having to install millions of different game launchers, which I'll show you later on in the video how you can speed all of that up, but it seems common that this gets overlooked. The way that we fix this is by heading into our display settings. Also, while you're doing this, if you do have a very advanced display, make sure you enable G-Sync or AMD FreeSync, depending on what GPU you have. You do this within the GPU control panel, so if you do have a G-Sync supported display, this will just give you much better tear-free gameplay over just having standard sort of FreeSync enabled. Next up, let's do something a little bit more advanced, but still fairly simple, and let's hop into the BIOS. The way you access your BIOS is very simple. You just restart your computer, just reboot it, and while it's booting up, spam the delete key, and this will take you into the BIOS. Now, there are two different views for the BIOS. You've got simple view, and you also have advanced mode. Now, if you head into advanced mode, this will give you way more settings that you can unlock and tweak on your motherboard. Now, if you don't know what the BIOS is, this is essentially like the brain of your motherboard. To put it really simply, you go in here and you can tweak all of the control settings and parameters that dictate how the motherboard is operating. So you can change things like the fan speeds. You can even overclock various things like the CPU voltage to make your hardware go a little bit faster. So many things you can do. You can also enable different storage settings to speed up the boot times of your PC, and so on. But one thing in particular that's the easiest thing to change, and is also an essential thing to change, is the RAM speeds. Now, if you have a pre-built computer, there's a high likelihood chance that this is already being enabled for you, so you don't need to worry about it. But if you've built the computer yourself, even if you've purchased the fastest RAM sticks in the world, they will be running at the slowest possible speed that they're compatible with. So you could be missing out on loads of performance and FPS in all of your games, and also it's just stupid not enabling it, because you've paid more for faster RAM sticks, but yet they're running at like the base clock rather than essentially the boost clock that they're capable of. So you may as well have just bought the cheaper sticks if you're not going to change this setting. So head into your BIOS by clicking the delete key, and then go and find a setting that's called XMP. What you want to do is you want to enable XMP, and this will essentially unlock the RAM sticks or overclock the RAM sticks and make them run at the fastest speed that they can. Some motherboards do let you specifically specify the exact frequency and speed that you want these RAM sticks to run at. If you're super hardcore and you want to make sure you've got the perfect speed for the CPU that you currently have for the maximum performance gains, you can obviously tweak this here, but for most people, just slap it up to the fastest ones possible. If you're running Intel, this should be XMP, but if you are on certain AMD chipsets, you may need to look for a setting called Expo, which is essentially the exact same thing, so just enable that and tweak the settings accordingly for full RAM capabilities. Now, this next tip I'm going to share with you is, I don't know whether it's a little bit dodgy, so don't hold me to this, but it's definitely worth knowing it exists and do your research at your own accord. Probably one of the biggest problems when it comes to having a new gaming computer is the amount of apps that you need to install. This involves things such as obviously your game launchers, Steam, Origin, or it's called EA Play now, of course, but even Uplay for Ubisoft, then all of the other ones, Epic Games, then any other apps you need for maybe school, Word, Notion for your productivity type things, even Zoom for your Zoom calls. The the list goes on. The amount of stuff you have to install when you get a PC, you're probably looking at like on average like 35 apps if you're quite a busy user. So this means you have to go to each website individually, install each launcher individually, unpack each launcher individually, and so on, and go through this arduous task of installing and rebooting your computer a million times. And it takes you a good week or two to eventually get all of your apps on there as you keep remembering which ones you're missing. Now, Linus Tech Tips around 13 to 14 years ago did this video for NCIX about some software, or a website rather, called Night Night. This is a website where you go to it and then you can tick all of the boxes for the different applications that you want to install. So they're all there, all the most common PC apps that you would require on there, so it prompts your memory to remember. You just tick all of the different boxes and then just literally click the download all button, and it will go ahead and download these in the background and unpack them all, and then they appear on your computer. Now, this has been an app that's existed for over a decade now, so clearly it's fairly trusted within the PC community, but you do need to be very careful, or a degree of caution, because obviously if you are installing applications from a third-party downloader, what else could it be downloading on there? I'm not too sure. Now, if you are using this, let me know in the comment section down below. I can see the benefits of using them like this because it could save you a lot of time, especially if you're a heavy power user of Windows 11. And I have some friends that do use similar websites to this one for these purposes. I personally usually go ahead and just install things individually just for that safety and security. But talk about it down below and we'll see if it's worth trying out. On the topic of downloading things, an essential setting that you need to change are the power options on your PC. Now, obviously, because all of these softwares are about obviously helping the environment and reducing power usage of your device, this means when you freshly install Windows 11, your computer will go to sleep after like 5 minutes. So this means if you leave your computer on overnight to install all of your games, all of your launchers, all of your applications, after 5 minutes of leaving the PC, it will just turn itself off and you'll wake up in the morning and none of your games will have installed. So the workaround for this is basically changing the power supply settings within Windows. Thankfully, you can go into the power settings in the control center and adjust how long it will take for your PC to automatically turn itself off. As we just mentioned, by default, it will turn off after literally 5 minutes. So you would have to sit there all night moving your mouse, moving your mouse, moving your mouse to make sure that all of your games got installed. And if you're anything like me and have awful internet connection, the only way to install your games is leaving your PC on for about 10-12 hours through the night while you go to bed. So you're going to want to change the power settings to turn the PC off never or after a crazy amount of hours if you do want it to automatically turn itself off so it's not on for the eternity of time if you forget to shut it down. So I personally have my PC where the screen will turn off after 5-10 minutes because there's no point in that being on, but the power supply and system itself will remain on. So I have that selected as never. So I can just leave that PC on for 2 or 3 days if I needed to, because seriously guys, my internet is that slow. It can take that long for games to install, but also for me to upload footage onto Google Drive for different editors to access it so we can actually create these videos in quite a timely manner. This is a huge setting that a lot of people forget to talk about, and especially if you have a desktop PC, this is very important. Now, if you have a gaming laptop, obviously I would have that automatically turn itself off in a reasonable amount of time so it doesn't completely drain the power. But if you have it connected to a battery, so it's plugged into the wall charging, you can have a separate setting for a laptop where you can have it set to turn off never or however long you want it to be, so you can do your installs and downloads when you are on power, and then as soon as you disconnect, it will turn off after like 20 minutes, let's say. Absolute game changer of a feature, and if you're finding value out of this video, be sure to give it a like and also subscribe for more tips and tricks just like this one, and comment down below anything else you know that I may have missed so far in this video. Now that you might have some games finally installed on your PC after everything you've just tweaked, and we've optimized the system for the best performance with the RAM, now let's talk about how we can monitor that performance to make sure that all of the components in our system are healthy and working correctly. There's a lot of different softwares and benchmarks that you can install to monitor how your PC is performing, that you can then also compare that to various different statistics online to see if the health of the system is very good. Some of my personal favorites include GeForce Experience if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, MSI Afterburner, and also NVIDIA FrameView. There's also some benchmarking tools that you can use. One of the most popular is 3D Benchmark. This lets you see how the system's performing, also see if it has any crashes. Is it blue screening? Is it crashing at certain points within the benchmark test? So that allows you to see if something's not working quite correct. And then of course you can compare your score of your system to everybody else's on the internet to see if maybe your graphics card is a rubbish graphics card, you've got a rubbish CPU that hasn't got the full clock speeds, and you maybe being ripped off a little bit. But let's specifically specifically just talk about monitoring FPS within games, and something like GeForce Experience, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you can install this for free, and clicking Alt-Z on your keyboard will allow you to access tools such as Shadowplay. Now, Shadowplay is a screen recorder, so you can have the FPS in the corner, the voltage usage of your graphics cards, temperatures, so many different stuff, but more specifically, you can just click Alt-Z and start recordings, and Alt-F9, I think it is the shortcut to trigger and start recordings. This lets you capture clips within your gameplay, so you can share those with friends or upload them onto YouTube if you're a YouTuber or upcoming YouTuber. But also you can just capture really easy, high quality gameplay and also screen recordings for tutorials, which is exactly what I've used to capture all of the footage within today's video. This is the fastest and easiest way, and also in my personal opinion, the most reliable way I've found to capture recordings and gameplay directly on my PC without using an external capture card, like from Elgato, for example, which is my personal favorite choices when I am making videos about my Xbox and PlayStation 5 and need to capture the screen on those consoles. MSI Afterburner is another alternative that's very useful for getting even more detailed information about exactly what your graphics card and CPU and everything are doing. It's very good for doing some of the tests that we do here on this channel about different components. But also MSI Afterburner is an overclocking software. So if you're feeling confident at your own risk, you can go ahead and tweak some of the parameters of your hardware to get, a little 5% boost in overall performance on the system. But make sure you watch a lot of tutorials on how to do this, because you can damage and kill your components if you push things a little too far. A much easier way to get more performance out of your system that's risk-free is by disabling startup apps. Now, especially if you've purchased a pre-built system, the amount of, people like to call it like bloatware, but the amount of nonsense that is installed on your system from the start is off scale. This includes loads of apps that you don't really care about, different virus protection softwares that you don't really care about, different stuff that's been basically thrown on the system when it arrives. This means this can make the computer take longer to boot up. When you do finally have it booted up, there's all this crap popping up and it's getting in the way, so you have to close it every single time. But then also there's lots of background tasks happening that you're not fully aware of that will be bottlenecking the overall capabilities of your system within your games. So if you dive into your system settings and go over to background tasks and also startup apps, here you can disable a load of startup apps so they don't boot up at all unless you click on them. So for example, Spotify is a great example. If you install Spotify, every time you boot up your computer, by default, it will be a startup app where Spotify will launch up, which is very annoying because not every single time you're playing on your PC, you don't necessarily want to listen to music. So you can disable that as a startup app, so only you double click on the desktop icon and it will then boot up the app. This means stuff isn't running in the background, so you get a bit better performance, especially if you don't have the world's best CPU. This means it's not basically impeding all of its multi-core performance and all of its cache on pointless tasks in the background. And you can free up some bandwidth and headroom on your different components for the most important things, which is obviously playing your video games and winning some games. Next, let's talk about peripherals and maximizing these accessories. First, let's focus on the mouse. By default, on Windows, something called mouse acceleration will always be enabled. Now, mouse acceleration isn't the devil, and isn't the worst thing in the world. But if you are playing competitive FPS shooters, you're going to want to disable it to make sure that you're getting the pure performance out of the sensor in the mouse. There's no point spending like £170 on an esports gamer caliber of mouse to then have a silly little feature in Windows, mouse accelerator, basically cause a degree of inconsistency in how the sensor is operating. So if you head into your settings and then uncheck this box right here, this will disable mouse acceleration. So now your mouse will respond way more naturally to how it is. Because basically mouse acceleration, as you move the mouse, it just speeds up the mouse cursor more than is actually what your hand is doing. So that can make you be a little bit inaccurate in FPS games. In combination with disabling mouse acceleration, you also want to make sure you install the software for whatever brand mouse you have. Now, I personally use this Logitech mouse here, the Superlight Pro 2 or something it's called. This has obviously Logitech G Hub. So I use Logitech headset, Logitech mouse, Logitech keyboard, and a whole bunch of other Logitech stuff as well, including some lights on the desk for live streaming. Within G Hub, I can then customize all of the presets on this mouse way better than just running it without those drivers. So yes, you can install the drivers without the G Hub. Then within G Hub, I can customize the DPI sensor. I can customize what the side buttons also do as well. So I can do different shortcuts, and I can also do different presets depending on what game I'm playing. If I'm playing FPS shooters, I can have a particular DPI setting for that. If I'm playing RPG or MMO titles, I can have a particular preset for that. So the mouse operates differently. Every single mouse company has this, whether it be MSI, Corsair, HyperX, you name it. Those people have got their own software as well to allow you to customize and tweak the presets of your mouse to get the best possible and most comfortable experience. This then leads us on to a very controversial topic, which is using a controller on your PC. Now, obviously, mouse and keyboard is the most superior way to play your games. You're a noob if you don't use mouse and keyboard. PC master race for the win. That's what everybody says. Mouse and keyboard is the only way to play. And that is 100% correct for 99% of games on your PC. Obviously, other than racing titles. You need a steering wheel, guys, for that. But there are some games that do require a controller for the best possible experience. Now, choosing a controller for your PC is actually a little bit harder than you would first assume. You would just think, okay, I'll just Bluetooth my Xbox controller to my PC, no problems at all. Now, what I found, especially with desktop computers, if I just Bluetooth my Xbox controller to that, the experience 85% of the time is okay. But now and again, you'll get a random dropout from the Bluetooth connection, which will cause you to lose in the game or something stupid, just annoying. It just start glitching out, especially if you have like your phone on the desk and maybe a few things in the way. That can interfere with this connection going over to the PC. It's very annoying. Now, one workaround of this, if you do just want to use your Xbox controller, is to purchase the official PC adapter on the internet. Now, I do think this has been discontinued on some stores, so getting hold of one is a little bit harder than it used to be, but this will essentially give you a much more reliable connection to the controller, to the USB dongle into the PC, kind of. But then also, there is the option to go for pro controllers. Now, if you wanted to, you could get a wired controller that bypasses all of these issues, but wired is a little bit of a downgrade because you don't get an official controller. It's usually a third-party controller from a cheap brand on Amazon. We've looked at loads of wired controllers here on the channel in the past, and they're close enough, but they end up breaking after 6-8 months, or they just don't feel quite as premium to the touch. But probably the best option is going for a pro controller. This could be something from the likes of Scuff or even Razer. Now, because these are pro esports controllers, they either have the capabilities to plug them in wired, so they are wired for the fastest possible response time, but also you're getting insane build quality on your pro controller. But more specifically, they usually come included with a high-speed dongle. So this means you can plug it into the back of the PC. You're using Lightspeed gigahertz more connection, like what your Logitech mice are using versus Bluetooth. So that means the response time's instantaneous, but then also you get all of the pro features of an esports controller with buttons on the back, customizable thumbsticks, and different faceplates to really get more of that pro gamer, almost PC gamer super race vibe, even when you do have to resort to using a controller. Now, so far we've focused on some pretty serious settings that are available on your PC, but now let's take a look at something that's a little bit more fun, which is the wallpaper on your desktop. On Steam, there is this app called Wallpaper Engine that costs around $4 or $5, I believe. And within here, you get access to loads of different customizable wallpapers for your desktop, but more interestingly, you get animated, adaptive, dynamic, all these crazy words that are just coming to my head right now, wallpapers. So instead of it just being a still image, you get little animated videos that will play on loop in the background of your wallpaper. It just makes it very interesting. Now, within Wallpaper Engine, you can deep dive in to different wallpapers, customize images, and really tailor the exact color scheme to your gaming setup for exactly what you want. It's a cheap app that's available on Steam, and it's definitely worth installing. I personally, would much rather you checked out my wallpaper pack that's linked down below in the description. This is a $5 wallpaper pack that is at 4K resolution, and it's more focused for obviously people that are on PlayStation and Xbox in particular for customizing the background of your Xbox dashboard. But it is also compatible with mobile wallpapers and also on the desktop of your gaming computer, if that's something you're interested in. I'll leave a link down below in the video description. It helps support the channel, especially if you've been enjoying today's video. It allows us to make more content just like this. Now, the final tip I want to share with you will save you a lot of time and frustration when the inevitable happens, which is your PC will crash. Console gaming is obviously the most reliable form of gaming. It's very well optimized. The likelihood of something crashing or going wrong is very low, which is obviously the contrary to PC gaming, which can be brilliant when it works, but very frustrating when it doesn't. At some point in your PC gaming journey, you will experience a game crashing and have to quickly find a way to terminate the task. Now, what will happen is when a game crashes, it usually locks up your whole computer and you struggle to boot up Task Manager to kill off the game and the task at hand, which then usually results in you having to disconnect the power of your PC or something that you just shouldn't really do that could cause loss of data or just, glitches and errors on your system. But instead, if you prepare Task Manager correctly, this will prevent you having any problems when this occurs. Use the shortcut Control-Shift-Escape, which will boot up Task Manager, and then at the top bar, go ahead and select Always on Top. This means in any moment when a game locks up and your system starts to basically crash, you can trigger that shortcut and it will boot up the Task Manager without you needing to use the mouse, and it will appear on top of the program that is the problem right now, whether that be the game, whether that be your application, your editing software. It will boot up on top of it. Then that means you can just click and end the task without any dramas. Whereas by default, even if you use that shortcut but you didn't tweak this setting, your broken app will always be at the front of the screen and Task Manager will boot up behind it, so you can't access it, which is kind of useless. So make sure you tweak this little setting and it will make your life 1,000 times better. Now, if you want the full PC gamer experience, you should check out this video next where I break down 10 of the coolest games ever made on the PC. These are all very fun titles and some of my personal favorite games that I have ever played. But as always, I've been Ben Rowlands. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.